If I bleed tonight, if I am sad tonight, I don't have a job to find. And if I work tonight, if I'm so tired tonight, I'll fall asleep when I'm home, when I'm home. I was just so far from here, focused on my own way, with never looking back to those who lived in fear. There was nothing I could do, there was nothing you said that could make me realize how much lucky I was. Just out of reach of the fire, was not aware of the nightmare, but when I stopped to see through sight, begging for help, begging for hope, just need to open my eyes now, to try to change them to sunshine, to be someone among others. I've got to try it. If I bleed tonight, if I am sad tonight, I don't have a job to find. And if I work tonight, if I'm so tired tonight, I fall asleep when I'm home, when I'm home. Where you go, no one I can see through at the side of your eyes. I can see my life is crap, I have to see them too. I just live into my world, far from the pain, the feel. Was out of reach of the fire, was not aware of the start of hell, but when I stop to see through sight, begging for help, begging for hope, just need to open my eyes now, to try to change them to sunshine, to be someone among us.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, it is Monday. It is 7 p.m. As you can see, it's OMD. It is time for the locker room breakdown. I am flying solo here tonight. Bubba Duke is on assignment with the shoot job tonight. A lot to cover from last week on Raw. Not so much tonight, but we also don't know a whole lot of what is going on. Though rumor has it, and I cannot confirm this yet, but rumor has it that Nick Aldis is running the show tonight. So ladies and gentlemen, let's get right into it. Last week, to start the show, we had our brand new, undisputed 17-time World Heavyweight Champion, John Cena, appear to celebrate. And he was going off on his rants as usual. And credit to him, I mean, he was talking about it and how much he wanted to ruin wrestling and all of those things, all to get a sneak attack from Randy Orton. Randy Orton is not a surprise to see him on John Cena's list of opponents for this retirement tour. I am all for it. I'm glad it's happening earlier in the tour than it is later. And that's only because you don't, as much history as they have, I'm one of the many that did not want Randy Orton to be John Cena's final match. It was the devastating RKO out of nowhere that did this, and Randy Orton snuck in the ring, which was fantastic. We did see this carry over to SmackDown. And it's interesting because of how much the dynamic between Randy and John has changed. Because normally John Cena would have been the babyface going into this and Randy the heel. In this case, the roles are reversed. And who would have thought that? It was confirmed Friday on SmackDown that we are going to get John Cena and Randy Orton at Backlash in St. Louis, which is Randy's hometown, which, again, is only fitting. And I, for one, for a long, long time, said if anybody deserves to break Ric Flair's record, it is Randy Orton over John Cena. Now, I'm glad the record's been broken. It's a lot like people questioning, did I really want to see a Russian in Alexander Ovechkin break the NHL goal-scoring record held by Wayne Gretzky? It didn't matter to me that Ovi's Russian. But I digress. Back to Cena and Orton. This is going to be hopefully as combative as it has been in the past, although we did notice that John Cena seems to have lost a step, but that does happen with age. I know I have. Ladies and gentlemen, please feel free to interact. I do love to hear from you. But on to our next topic of discussion from last week. Liv Morgan and Raquel Rodriguez, a night removed from losing the Women's Tag Team Championships on night 2 of WrestleMania, regained them by defeating Becky Lynch and Lyra Valkyria. This prompted an attack post-match from Becky Lynch on Lyra. And in this case, I don't think it has so much to do with the Women's Intercontinental Championship. I think this has more to do with their history. Both of them being from Dublin, Ireland. Both of them having spent some time working together in NXT when Becky was the NXT champion. And she passed the torch to Lyra. I think that is where this is going to stem from. This was a fantastic match. And once again, an amazing showcase of the WWE Women's Division. Lyra is so far ahead of her time. She is going to be one of the future goats of the women's division. I will promise you that. As for Becky, we've seen this before and we'll see it again. We've seen it so many times with people who have that tenure of babyface heel, babyface heel, babyface heel. And it's back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And yes, for me, it does get tiresome. Don't get me wrong. But there was enough time in between Becky's last run as a babyface and now this. She got the huge pop for her return at WrestleMania to team with Lyra. And now she's going to do the heel run again. And I am okay with it. I really, really am. Does this lead to a match at Backlash or does this lead to a match tonight? I don't know. I would much prefer tonight if it's a non-title match. If it's going to be for the Women's Intercontinental Championship, book it for Backlash. We just saw the women's secondary title change hands Friday on SmackDown. I don't want to see it again 3 nights later. I think that's just too much change too fast, and especially as we do have a draft coming up, and I'm going to guess that that is going to take place following Backlash. Up next, a very, very interesting segment as we had the new World Tag Team Champions, Xavier Woods and Kofi Kingston, the New Day, coming out to celebrate their tag team title victory. And correct me if I'm wrong, anybody, but I believe that this is a WWE record title now for them. But two things really got to me because, I mean, the New Day came out dressed in street clothes as opposed to ring gear. They were interrupted by the Alpha Academy, Alpha Babes, whatever you or they or WWE want to call them. But we got some interesting swag and confidence on the mic from Maxine Dupri. Where has that been? Where has that been? That was fantastic. Best promo I have ever heard her cut. And even though the New Day were not going to defend their tag titles, they were not going to compete, they said yes, but this is where things really, really kicked off as we got the return of Rusev, who came down. He laid waste to the Alpha Academy, all because the New Day tucked their tails between their legs and ran away. Good evening, S. Dima. Thank you for joining me. I greatly appreciate it. Coming in with the comment saying, if there was a little good in the world and everyone considered himself a brother, there would be fewer worries and fewer pains, and the world would be much more beautiful. I could not agree more. My brother would normally be here tonight, but he is going to be on assignment with his shoot job this evening and is unable to be here. This is actually an attempt at a first true solo podcast for myself. So thank you for joining us. Thank you for your comments. Greatly appreciated. Now, we knew it was a matter of time for Rusev to return. I was anticipating it potentially the Friday before WrestleMania for the Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal. This way was just as fantastic. I apologize. And it just once again showed off his dominance. And it remains to be seen what we see tonight and moving forward. Again, excuse me, ladies and gentlemen, I apologize. The fact that, I mean, he caught Akira Tozawa from a flying crossbody, which really isn't a surprise. Bulkster, my main man, saying Rusev's return felt lackluster. I can understand that. Look, I'm sure we all want bigger feuds for him, but it was his first night officially back on the WWE roster. It's just going to be a matter of what that feud is going to be. Now, in the future, if you can give me Rusev Gunther, please. And again, I do want to give a shout out to the Bulkster, Bulk Bogan, as you see there in the comments. If it wasn't for him, this show would not be possible. We know he prefers to stay behind the scenes and do this, but he is the one that gets us everything to review and preview. So again, a big shout out, Bulkster, because the Locker Room Breakdown wouldn't be here if it wasn't for somebody like you to help us out. As I said, the New Day tucked their tail between their legs earlier and ran away. But then for Rusev to hit the accolade and lock it in and almost make Otis pass out, huge. Are we going to get that match tonight? Is that something we see in the future? I'm sure it is. There are a lot of guys who are now that, I don't want to say obstacle, but that first step, that first opponent when they're coming into Raw or SmackDown. And prior to WrestleMania, I think it was Dom as well as the Alpha Academy on Raw. And I can absolutely understand that. I think it's great because you want to have those platforms to springboard off of, I guess, to push yourself onto bigger and better things. I just wish we could see and get more positives for the Alpha Academy and for Otis and Tozawa specifically. But again, please, can I get that same confident, swaggered Maxine tonight? Can I get her coming out there to call somebody out, please? Next up, ladies and gentlemen, we had the Women's World Champion Io Sky coming out to celebrate her retaining the women's title at WrestleMania. Oh, Volkster, again, thank you for your comment. I'm with you 100%. You think Alpha Academy would be good for a tag run? 100% they would. Mr. Best, good to see you, brother. Thank you for stopping in. I greatly appreciate it. And, okay, so one of you says yes, one of you says no for the tag run from the Alpha Academy. But I digress. Io Sky is out there to celebrate her victory. And we get the surprise appearance of the NXT Women's Champion Stephanie Vaquer coming out to offer her congratulations and respect to Io, and I think it was fantastic. And Stephanie, to her credit, even said, look, I want to face the best, so I'm challenging you. And again, ladies and gentlemen, just to showcase the women's division and the depth it has, what a match. This was a fantastic match. All for it to get interrupted by Roxanne Perez and Julia, both also from NXT. Now, we are fully expecting Roxanne Perez to be called up during the draft. Now, which roster she goes to, I don't know. From the look of it, I would have to think it is going to be Raw. She made her first Raw appearance last year on the night after WrestleMania. And then as she carried on throughout her feuds, she's had a few matches, even qualifying for the Elimination Chamber and her appearance in the Royal Rumble, which were fantastic. That sort of propelled her. And she's had one appearance on SmackDown. So the question is, ladies and gentlemen, do you take it with the more appearances you have on a brand, the more comfortable you are with that locker room, and you're going to go there? Or do you go with the less appearances you have on a brand, the more it's going to shake up that division? What really got me here was Julia, who debuted very shortly before Stephanie Vaquer in NXT. And these two were friends. They had a fantastic battle for the NXT Women's Championship. Oh, and Bulkster saying he saw something about both Julia and Roxanne both wearing the new debut patch on their gear. So it said that they were both called up. Well, great point. Yes, there are new patches that superstars are wearing if they are making their debuts, or they had them for WrestleMania as well. And these are special. This, I think is fantastic. But you never know, because it could still be a SmackDown debut. I do hope that they go to separate brands as opposed to both being on Raw. And I think this is going to be fantastic, not only for the mid-card division, but for the Women's World Championship divisions as well on both brands. I am so happy for Roxanne. Anybody who knows I have been a huge fan of her since she was Roxy in Ring of Honor, the old school Ring of Honor. Okay, so Bulkster saying as well that they noted Stephanie didn't wear a patch. Okay. No, and you're not going to get these people just coming up. There is always an appearance or two from NXT on the Raw after WrestleMania. We saw it a year ago, as I said, with Roxanne Perez and with Ilya Dragunov, who I hope we're going to see back very, very soon. But again, this was a fantastic match. The women's division was showcased brilliantly throughout Raw last week, and I could not have been happier. Up next, we had main event Jey Uso coming out and appearing. And he thanked everybody. He was talking about it, wearing the title, showing it off. And yes, Jay, you deserve it. Yeet. So take your title, go defend it, be the champion you want to be the champion that everybody expects you to be. Not everybody expects you to be the champion that they deserve. This was followed up with a rather interesting interruption as Sami Zayn made an appearance for the first time since the Elimination Chamber. And he came out to apologize to Jey and say, I'm sorry I wasn't there for this with Gunther. I'm sorry I wasn't there to celebrate with you at WrestleMania. But thank you, congratulations, I'm proud of you, I love you. We were all waiting, expecting that sneak attack. And it's one of those things, in this situation, I am so glad it didn't happen. Because we had, with the return of Rusev, with Becky Lynch turning heel, as well as what our next topic will be, I don't think it was needed. I think Sami saving face, staying face is what was needed. As well, then Jimmy Uso came out and, well, let's just face it, Sami Zayn is an Uso. So I will say it, the three Uso brothers celebrated together, and good on them. Now, I do hope that Jey can still count on those two throughout his championship run. And I do hope that it is a significant run, not just, a 1 or 2 month thing to get the belt back onto Gunther or whomever may be next. Up next, we had Dirty Dominic Mysterio defending his Intercontinental Championship and retaining against Penta. And again, ladies and gentlemen, I am not a lucha fan by any stretch. This match, these two, they can always be counted on to deliver. And what more can be said? Yes, we had the Judgment Day shenanigans. No, Penta didn't have anybody out to come and help him. But it was still an amazing, amazing match. And you know what? I'm glad that we are getting to see it, because we do have now 2 heel champions and 2 babyface champions on Raw. And I am all for that. It's about the balance. We need that. And lastly, because there is one more segment to cover from Raw that Bulkster, I know you probably didn't forget. It probably didn't come up in the recap results for us. But we were supposed to hear from Seth Rollins and Paul Heyman about their actions at WrestleMania. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, at WrestleMania, we saw Seth Rollins turn heel and align himself with Paul Heyman. And just as they were about to speak, out comes CM Punk. Punk and Rollins brawl. And finally, Rollins gets the upper hand, dumps CM Punk out of the ring and onto the floor. And again, as they are getting ready to celebrate, we hear the tribal drums and we see Roman Reigns come out. Roman comes out, spears Seth, knocks him out of the ring, lands a Superman punch on Paul Heyman, and then as he's got Heyman lined up for the spear, he was intercepted with a spear as Braun Breaker came out and targeted him. As Braun and Seth were celebrating, Punk was looking to come back in, and Braun Breaker hits him with the spear. And I love it. Bulkster, you're coming in here saying with the comment, the New Dangerous Alliance, that's exactly where I'm at. I know people have referred to it as a new evolution. I don't see it. I don't get the feel of evolution from it. I get the Dangerous Alliance feel from it. Even at this rate, I could give it an NWO type of feel as long as it doesn't start to involve the entire locker room. And so Punk eats the spear, and all 3 of them stand in the ring, quote unquote, victorious, with Roman and Punk laid out. All right, ladies and gentlemen, before we go to the preview, or tonight's preview, I got to find it here. I do not appear to have it here. I wanted to show you where you could find everything we have going on here. So for everything going on here at Turnbuckle Studios and the Turnbuckle Affiliation Program, we have shows every day of the week. Monday to Sunday and back again.
Turnbuckle Studios and the Turnbuckle Affiliation Program bring you the week of streams. All times are in Eastern Time. Monday nights you get the Locker Room Breakdown at 7 p.m., followed by the Raw Patrol at 8 p.m. Tuesday brings you the flagship show, Turnbuckle Talk, at 8:05 p.m. Wednesday we play games with the PlayStation Showcase at 8 p.m. Thursday we got total non-stop action with Brace for Impact at 8 p.m. Friday we game again with Unleashed, the Jessica Wilde story at 7 p.m. Following the game, join us for the SmackDown Security Detail at 8 p.m. The Weekend brings you Saturday Night Gaming at 8 p.m. On Sunday, be sure to catch the Chris Parrish podcast at 12:15 p.m. followed by the Boar's Nest at 8 p.m. Be part of the shows and join the chat every day.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. And if you are interested in meeting all of us, collabing, wanting to get into podcasting, or even just the creative aspect and work behind the scenes with us, visit us here at turnbucklestudios.org. There is a section on the website where you can meet the team, including myself, Bubba Duke, Chris Parrish, Chris Best, Carl Carafel, and somebody will get back to you. So, ladies and gentlemen, please, if this is something that you want to try, this is something you want to step into, please give us a shout. And as well, ladies and gentlemen, you can find us all on our YouTube. If you're looking for me, ladies and gentlemen, you can find me at my Linktree, linktr.ee/OMD show. For Bubba Duke, who would normally be with me, you can find him on the YouTube at Bubba OMD and on Twitch, where he does a lot of his solo gaming at Boar's Nest with Bubba Duke. And since I've already thanked him, I want to shout him out one more time. The Bulkster. Catch him on YouTube and on TikTok, both of those at Bulkster Show. All right, ladies and gentlemen, on to tonight. As we just finished discussing from what happened to end Raw last week, we get Seth Rollins, Braun Breaker, and Paul Heyman will address their actions. I don't really think there is anything to address. This is something where, my opinion, Paul Heyman was being used by Punk, by Roman, and Punk used Paul to get inside Roman's head. And for me, that aspect in WrestleMania was two ex-girlfriends battling over a guy who's found a new model. And I am okay with it. I think everybody really wants to know, Braun Breaker, where does he fit in? Is he the muscle? Is he the new heavy for Seth? Or is this going to be what really launches Braun? Do we get him into the world title picture now, along with or even ahead of Seth, with Seth calling the shots? For one, I don't know where this is going to go. Are we going to see a new member added to this new alliance tonight, or do we wait a little while? Personally, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to see them wait a little bit. You don't want to rush this now. You've already made an impact with these two. But I, for one, cannot wait to see where this goes and how dominant this new faction can or will become. As well, we are going to get Becky Lynch discussing her attack on Lyra Valkyria. As I stated earlier, ladies and gentlemen, I don't think this has so much to do with the Women's Intercontinental Championship. I think this has to do with their history. This has to do with their Irish heritage. This has to do with their time from NXT. Is this a case of Becky Lynch taught Lyra everything Lyra knows back in NXT, but didn't teach her everything that Becky knows? Or is this a case now of, okay, you're my student, now I want you to surpass the teacher? Is this now the teacher putting the final exam down in front of Lyra and saying, okay, pass it? Now that the lights are brighter, now that the stage is bigger, what can you do in the big time? Up next, ladies and gentlemen, we will see Rhea Ripley and Roxanne Perez going at it. This is going to be an interesting match, and again, an amazing showcase of the women's division. It's the only match so far announced for tonight. So I can't really sit there and say it's going to be my match of the night without bias, because it is, as I said, the one match listed. But you've got the strength and power of Rhea Ripley versus the speed, the agility, and the pure wrestling ability of Roxanne Perez. I think this is going to go to Roxanne in an upset. And it's not going to hurt Rhea. It's something that is going to really help push Roxanne to, again, that upper, not that upper echelon, but get her up and get her ready against Raw competition. And maybe it's going to put her into that women's Intercontinental title picture right off the hop. I am going to call shenanigans because if, as Bulkster noted, they were potentially both wearing their Raw debut shirt patches last week, I would not put it past them to have Julia interfere to cost Rhea this match. Lastly, ladies and gentlemen, the guy we love to hate and hate to love, Logan Paul, set to appear on Raw tonight. What does the Maverick have to say? What does the Maverick have to do? Do we get AJ Styles coming back out and asking him for a rematch? Do we get Karrion Kross, who has been in AJ's face over this for the last several weeks? Where does this go? Where do we see Logan Paul go from his WrestleMania match with AJ? Do we see him get into the Intercontinental title picture? Do we see him get into the world title picture again? Bulkster, 100%. I am with you. I would love to see the return of Killer Kross. That would be amazing, and that would be what is best for business. I'm sure we're going to hear or see Rusev in some capacity tonight. There will be more action, that's for sure. But ladies and gentlemen, with that being said, normally because I'd normally have a partner with me, we'd still be going back and forth on Dominic Mysterio and Penta from last week. But ladies and gentlemen, thank you for taking time. Thank you for allowing me into your home. And ladies and gentlemen, from all of us here at the Turnbuckle Affiliation Program, to those of you out there, wherever you are, good night, good luck. I'm out.
I'll be there when you're down, when you're losing your crown, till the afterglow, the afterglow. Away. You look so great when you gotta shine. One more part of you is gone now, as you keep smiling at the crowd. Pressure is your best enemy. Spotlights show what I wanna see. Sometimes it feels like you're under attack. You just can't break free.